Hi there. You're listening to Hypercast, an ADHD podcast. I'm Melissa, an ADHD coach and advocate.
Hi, I'm Brianna, an ADHD coach and soon-to-be therapist. We are here to explore all things ADHD, from unexpected challenges to unique strengths.
Join us as we share insights and strategies that empower you to live your best ADHD life.
Ready? Let's dive into today's episode.
It's hard.
Specifically harder for ADHD and neurodivergent individuals. Adulting is hard for everyone. There is not a single adult person I've met who's like, this is easy. Welcome to Hypercast.
Welcome to Hypercast. Today's episode is on ADHD and adulting.
Let's talk about adulting.
How are you feeling about your adulting, Brianna?
I love the fact that it's a verb now. I love that we can just add ing to the end of nouns and make them verbs. That makes me happy.
What is adulting? Adulting is pretty much just doing all the grown-up stuff, right?
It's the tasks that make Christmas seem magical.
Christmas seem magical. That just lit up my life. Thank you.
You're so welcome. I swear this is a real thing. The point where you transition from childhood to adulthood is when you are responsible for making the magic of Christmas. That transition through adolescence into adulthood is when you start taking over a lot of those tasks yourself. It's always going to be harder for us to do those kind of executive functioning, time management, organizational tasks that help you function in adulthood.
It's hard.
Specifically harder for ADHD and neurodivergent individuals. Adulting is hard for everyone. There is not a single adult person I've met who's like, this is easy.
And it's variable too, because there's days I feel like I can show up and be great. And like today, I'm running a half an hour behind.
Did you say ADHD is variable?
Things happen, like hormones happen, life happens, exhaustion happens, burnout happens.
Some days you're not on top of the world.
Not on top of the world. Emotions are adulting, right? As adults, we are tasked with dealing with our emotions. And sometimes we have to deal with them in public. And with ADHD, our emotions can be really big and they can come really fast.
As a kid, you can get away with temper tantrums. As an adult, you can't get away with that. So there's certain social expectations around adulting.
Society has an expectation of you're supposed to act in a certain way. And sometimes that's hard for us. I had a client in our discussion, we were talking about emotions. I asked, where do you feel that in your body? She just stopped and was like, you're supposed to feel emotions in your body? I was just reminded of how often we intellectualize our feelings.
Incredibly often.
Yeah.
Like, that's why therapy is so ineffective for a lot of neurodivergent individuals, is because we intellectualize, we don't feel.
Yeah.
I had that same breakthrough with a client where I was like, hey, where are you feeling that? And you're like, huh? I was like, in your body, somewhere in your body, like the emotions are existing there. It's like in my brain. I was like, yeah. But like, do you like feel tight in your chest? Like, does your face feel hot? Like, are your hands balled into fists? I was like, I just want you to notice behavior.
What I loved is that same client then asked, how do I feel positive emotion? And I was like, so often I focus on how I feel about the negatives, but how do I feel about the positives? I had to think about it for a second. When I'm walking outside with my dog and it's beautiful outside, I feel light. My posture's better. My head's more clear. My jaw like unclenches. Like these things are important to recognize too.
I feel happiness in my feet because of that Penguin movie, Happy Feet. Like it's lighter, right? So like I'm bouncing or I'm prancing rather than just like stomping. You know? Like it's the same movement. Like you're still walking, but like prancing versus stomping.
I really struggled with bills, like understanding, like getting my paycheck versus when the bills were due, how to make that all happen. Like that was like really hard for me. My brain was behind on that understanding of making those connections. I felt like it took me until my mid-20s to really like hunker down and really get those things.
I don't know if that's neurochemically you being behind. Because here's the thing. If it's not taught to you in a way that your brain understands, you're not going to learn it. Where you would be developmentally behind someone is in social understandings, emotional understandings. So it takes us a little bit longer to mature in terms of that. But it's not necessarily like learning how to taxes. But where that would come into play is if it's not taught to you in the way that we need it to be taught, i.e. like not the neurotypical way that works for we're not going to have that information, and then we're not going to have the social or emotional skills to ask for that information.
The thing that you're saying is also reminding me that ADHD is hereditary. So how many of us are raised by parents who have ADHD and may not be the greatest examples of adulting themselves or helping their ADHD children create these systems that allow them to move smoothly into adulthood?
If you understand yourself You can then create systems for yourself that work. You are then more capable of maintaining relationships, of parenting children and having them be successful. Because if you can't model success, then you can't teach success.
I did not have these great examples as a kid. And I mean, I'm not going to like be upset about my past, but it did take me longer because I had to realize that I was missing a piece. By missing that piece, I wasn't able to follow through in certain adulting arenas. And I had to learn those things, sometimes the hard way.
If you don't know, if you don't have the information, if you don't know how to ask for the information, or if you don't even understand that the information is missing, and you're like, why am I struggling? Everyone else is doing fine. It's because they have information that you don't. Like, that is the key to solving a lot of the adulting problems, right? If you've only been modeled one way of doing something and that way doesn't work for you, you are always going to feel behind.
What?
Let that sink in.
It is sinking in. It's a little sad.
Yeah, it is overwhelming. Adulting is overwhelming for everyone, but in particular for us neurodivergent folks who have not been handed the adulting manual. Like, someone needs to print that up and give that to us. Ooh. Why does everyone else get it? We don't.
Brianna, we need to make an adulting manual.
Sign up for our adulting manual. You can do group coaching with us.
I think this mountain metaphor is apt in another way too, because a lot of times we contribute to that mountain. There's times I know I get in my own way.
If you do not have an understanding and acceptance of your neurodiversity, of how to work with your brain rather than against it, you are going to inadvertently put barriers in your way because you're going to be trying to use tools that weren't designed for you.
I know myself pretty well. And even when I'm creating systems, there are times when I over-engineer my systems and I don't take the time to simplify them, to really pay attention to what's causing friction, streamline things, and make my life easier.
Interesting.
As a result, I will stop doing those systems.
Can you give me an example?
I used to have this whole system when our mail came in, if I needed to file things, we had like a bank file. And in that bank file, there was a folder for each and every institution that we banked with. That was essentially like how all of my filing system was, but it never worked. It was such a chore that it prevented me from actually using a filing system at all. So I just had a pile of paper that kept getting bigger. Now my filing system, when mail comes in, is that I handle it. It then goes into a folder that says I've already handled it. And that's it. It's one folder for all things. I have one bucket that everything gets thrown into.
Interesting. I might argue with you that is you not understanding yourself enough. Because if you're over-engineering a system that you have already identified the pain points for, and then you're making it harder for yourself, there might still be some kind of emotional hang-up of, oh, I should be doing it this way, or I should be doing it that way. Because if you've identified the pain points, why would you add more?
My counter-argument to this is that I have both autism and ADHD. There are times when my autism really likes that order. Like, it satisfies it so much. And my ADHD wants to rebel against that entirely. And so I need to make sure that the systems I'm creating are actually honoring both sides of me so that I have some order and then I have just enough flexibility that allows it to be flexible for me when the ADHD goes, I don't want to be that detailed.
I'm going to take that as a win.
For your argument?
Did you know that you had autism when you over-engineered your system?
I did not.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to be more observant because this is new for me. I'm still growing and learning. And that's
that's what we should be doing. Like, that is what adulting is. It is growing and learning. If you create a system that reduces work, then it's easier to maintain that system.
Yes, that's my whole point about reducing friction. So
yeah, this is what adulting is. Successful adulting is not white picket fence, 2.5 kids, 401k.
If that is you, great.
Yeah, if that's your dream, go for it. Girly pop, succeed. But successful adulting isn't, my house is always clean, my linens are always folded, my doilies are perfectly placed. If the doilies aren't serving, you get rid of them, right? You don't need to change out the decorations in your house by the season. You don't need to do what those organizational moms do where they decant mouthwash into a different container. How about keeping things alive as adulting? Plants, pets, yourself, kids.
Oh, I have such a hard time keeping plants alive because they don't talk to me. They don't tell me they need to be fed.
There's tech for that.
Oh, God. I get so many notifications. Do you know how many I just ignore?
This is why I want to hire a cleaning service because cleaning is a pain point for me. And it doesn't matter how many systems I've tried, it's always a struggle. I can keep my kitchen clean. I can keep my bedroom clean. The bathrooms, the floors. I don't like vacuuming. It's too loud for me. And I also don't like touching dirty toilets.
Gloves. Gloves are my friend. Even though I knew I had ADHD, I wasn't medicated until I was in my late 20s. And even then, I thought that just taking the pill was going to cure my ADHD. It wasn't until I had gotten to one of the lowest points in my life and had to fight my way back. I had to learn how to really treat my ADHD. And that was in like my mid 30s. I have a client that talked about like, even after knowing they had ADHD, they lived their life shoving themselves in a neurotypical box for so long that they still think of themselves in terms of being neurotypical. They often forget because their life experience has been lived with a certain mindset.
And this is what my hope is for future generations, that you do get that diagnosis early and that there is understanding and acceptance. And so no one has to grow up putting systems in place that are counterintuitive to what actually works for them, which then as they mature into adulthood solidify. And now you have to fight twice as hard to break those systems to create something that actually works for you into adulthood.
We're sitting here talking about, we know all these things that make life easy, but life isn't easy. It doesn't matter how much I know. Life isn't easy. Life can be really freaking hard.
If I didn't have the systems in place that I currently have, which make adulting easier, when I burnt out from doing too much work and school and whatever, I would then have failed at adulting and would have not been able to feed myself or have clean clothes, or like I would have completely broken down and maybe needed a grippy socks vacation type of situation in order to reclaim some semblance of health, mental or physical, in my life, right? So,
but knowing what you know allows you to fight back and get back to homeostasis sooner, faster.
And that is what we're aiming for, right? We're never going to be able to prevent burnout. We're never going to be able to prevent life being hard. I saw a video of someone who scheduled their burnouts, and I was like, that is so brilliant. High stress, like corporate job, 2 kids, just a lot of demands. And they weren't willing to sacrifice any of their demands. So they just picked one day a month where they're like, yep, this is my burnout day and I'm going to burn out and I'm not going to take care of anyone or anything, not even myself.
It's essentially like succumbing to the burnout.
It is, but it's scheduling.
But also self-care at the same time. Let's talk about shoulds. So often us ADHDers feel like there's things that we should be doing, or we should be doing something a certain way, or there's certain things we should be living up to. Those things are detrimental to our mental health and well-being.
Yes, but shit. I just forgot how to speak for a second. Those shoulds impact our success.
Yes.
Because not all of them actually work for us.
Society has shoulds. There's internalized shoulds.
The internalized shoulds are from society, right? Like, you don't, I mean, it depends on if you believe in tabula rasa and being born as a blank slate. But like, in my opinion, there is no knowledge at birth of like how you should be cleaning your house. Should be that is a learned skill, and you learn it differently depending on which culture you grow up in. If you grow up in North America, there's a very individualistic mindset here, promoting this grind of like, I worked 10 hours last night is somehow a laudable goal. You didn't go home to your family. You didn't spend time on your hobbies. You didn't spend time with your friends or self-care or anything that creates balance. And so those...
What the hell's balance?
those shoulds impact adulting.
I don't know about you, but there's times it's the all or nothing. When I go all, I go all. And
yes. And when you go nothing,
I go nothing.
And then you get the guilt and the shame.
Yep.
Because of the shoulds that you didn't meet, right? There were expectations.
Cycle. And then that cycle is further supported by what societal pressures say you should do. So if you think you should be doing, and then society says you should be doing it, well, you sure as hell should be doing it, right?
And this is the internalized of things of like, I know it doesn't work for me, but I should be doing it this way. And then you keep beating a dead horse with a stick. Or what is that thing? The definition of insanity, same thing over and over again, and expecting different results. You're like, oh, if I just clean my kitchen this time, or if I just do it this way, it'll work. Or if I just keep a journal for this time,
it'll change everything.
It's not going to change it. Look, diet culture, it's like I should be healthy, I should be whatever. And diet culture isn't sustainable because you need
Can
a
I rant about
change.
diet culture?
Yeah, that's a part of adulting.
I hate diet culture a lot. I hate things like keto or these low carb things that say you can only eat X, Y, and Z And they're like, carbs are bad. I hate the whole thing that says carbs are bad because guess what? Vegetables are carbs, people. All
More
brains
energy.
require carbohydrates.
ADHD brains require carbs because we function twice as quickly, like our thoughts, like even more than the neurotypical brain because our thought processes are faster and take more energy.
We also need, in order to support those carbohydrates, we need protein. We need
Yes.
balance.
Oh my God.
If you didn't catch it before, click right here. I'll link to Annika Angelo's interview with us. She's really great, science-backed, very practical.
I love her.
Very practical information about what are good ways to eat when you have ADHD. Oh, mwah, chef's kiss. We love you, Annika.
But yes, balanced diet is incredibly important in order to have the energy to adult.
I don't think any of us are immune. We can set up our lives to be as optimal as possible to live our lives with ADHD. But we're not fully immune from dealing with things. That's why it's really important to have tools to fall back on when we do find ourselves in the situation where that negativity may be pulling us down, where we may be dealing with burnout.
The point of this episode is not how to adult because honestly, babes, you're doing it just fine, right? You're alive. You're doing okay.
Yeah.
We're here to validate and normalize that it's hard and you're doing just fine. I guess we're just trying to have a conversation and bring to light the fact that it is hard and that also validate that it is harder as a result of neurodivergence.
Yeah.
If you exist with the shoulds in your mind, like it's going to be harder. But even if you show yourself kindness and self-compassion and understanding and acceptance and everything we've ever preached, like it's still gonna suck. It's still gonna be hard.
And there's going to be days that are harder than others.
Yeah. For example, I was diagnosed at a very young age. I knew I had ADHD. And so I was able to put systems into place in my adult life that make adulting as easy as possible for me. And I still struggle.
Mm-hmm.
I came from privilege. I had parents who supported me. I knew from an early age. I was able to get an education and this is my career. I am in the best possible position to succeed. And still it's hard. Sometimes I'm in burnout and still sometimes I beat myself up about the shoulds. I have worked very hard to not allow the shoulds into my life to the point where I don't function as a neurotypical adult anymore. I function as a neurodivergent adult, and it has made my life infinitely better, but it's still hard.
And some of us are still working on gaining those skills as adults, working through the emotions of grief of what our lives could have been if we would have known earlier, really pivoting our perspectives to embrace our neurodivergence in a way that will allow us to have better self-acceptance and allow ourselves the grace and time to come up with those systems and build those skills for a stronger neurodivergent future.
I have the utmost compassion for people who are late diagnosed, who are just coming into this journey, who are desperately seeking information to try and understand themselves. And if this podcast or YouTube video or whatever format you're watching this in is part of your journey of understanding, we are so happy to have you here. We're so happy that you are on this journey of self-acceptance and self-understanding. And hopefully this makes something in your life easier, even if it's just knowing that you're not alone.
And we're not going to lie to you. We'll give you tools to help along the way. But also tell you, guess what? ADHD is hard. And
like, that's why it's a disability. One of my favorite things. It's like, oh my God, are you like, I'm being disabled by my disability. What? I am absolutely shocked that I am being disabled by my permanent disability right now. And I will also acknowledge that some people aren't ready to accept that ADHD is a disability. And there are, on both sides, there's people who have ADHD and people who don't, who are trying to claim that it's not as bad as it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, the utmost compassion for people who are on this journey and for people who are trying to come to terms with the fact that neurodiversity is a disability because of the society that we're in and because of the social expectations and shoulds that have been put into place in order to function as a functioning adult. It's tough.
And we're not going to tell you that this is curable because it's not.
Shouldn't be. That's like the X-Men mutants. We don't need a cure. Like, maybe one day there will be a cure, but I think the society would be worse off if we didn't have creative, outside of the box thinkers, people who diverge from the path, right? Like, I think that variety is the spice of life. And so if we don't accept and celebrate, not just accept, but celebrate our differences,
I agree. Even if they made our executive functioning easier, there's still things about us that will be different. Our brains are different. We are a different neurotype.
What I would like a cure for, in quotation marks, is the ability to start things.
Yes.
If you could come up with a task initiation medication, that would be great.
Something that helps with transitions.
Yeah. That's what, yeah.
And transitions.
Yeah,
my
those
life would be
two
better.
pieces, perfect. Most of my disability comes from the external shoulds that we've been talking about. I would like more focus on the things that actually negatively impact me versus the things that negatively impact society. The societal pressures, the shoulds, can make adulting harder than it needs to be. To summarize our episode about ADHD and adulting is very difficult. Maintaining relationships, maintaining a career, maintaining a home are all very difficult tasks when you're influenced by these externalized or internalized pressures from society, from these shoulds that we've discussed, become even harder to maintain. And obviously they're important to maintain because that's how you live a life. Adulting is the goal of childhood, right? I want to be independent. I want to be free to do what I want. And it comes with responsibility. So having this conversation about like normalizing and validating how hard it is, and that it is harder specifically for us neurodivergent folks, maybe make you feel a little bit better about it. I'm not sure that we offered any helpful tips, just a normalizing conversation about it is hard and it's okay that it's hard, and work with your brain rather than against it. What
and
we
be
always
kind
preach.
to yourself.
Yeah,
Please be kind to yourself.
What we always preach is understanding and acceptance. And hopefully this episode will have gotten you further down that path.
We're all walking this path together, even though our journeys may be a little bit different. If you're in need of ADHD support, you can find me at likemindcoaching.com.
You can find me at understandingadhd.ca.
Thank you so much for joining us, and until next time, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Hypercast.
If you've enjoyed today's episode and want to stay connected, be sure to rate and subscribe. And check out the show notes for links to our social media and websites.
Whether you're seeking practical tips, heartfelt stories, or just a sense of community, Hypercast is here for you.
Remember, you're not alone in your ADHD journey. Together, we can navigate the highs and lows with courage and compassion.
So until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep embracing your unique neurodiversity.
Catch you on the next episode of Hypercast.